One of my favorite guys in the business.
I am?
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
Because, we used to have the sexy allure of like what a hip-hop manager looks like.
Oh, boy.
And my brother, I don't know if we thought it was somebody like you. You know what I'm saying? No disrespect, all love.
Okay. What does a hip-hop manager look like in your mind?
Big, like Suge Knight type of figure.
Oh, my God.
Simmons back in the day. Big boys. Because at this point, how many people have you managed? Like obviously, we know Joe kind of brought you more to the forefront.
Sure.
That people know what you look like.
Right.
That type of stuff. But like at this point, it's a pretty stacked clientele list, right?
For sure. Yeah. I hate doing lists, but
I love
list them for sake of.
You don't love a good list?
I like a good list. This kind of list, I'm not the most favorable of, but it is my client list.
Yeah.
I've managed Papoose since the beginning of my management career.
Yeah.
DJ Premier, Royce and DJ Premier when they're prime. Michael Rappaport, Brady Watt, the bassist and producer, Joe Budden, and Remy Ma.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had my hands in.
I know you said it started with Honey Down Papoose at first, right? That was the beginning.
Yes, that was the beginning.
So did you always foresee like you wanted to build something like with this amount of clients, or was each one a situational thing where I want to get connected with this person, take them further?
I always wanted to build a management business, and I always saw it being more than one person, one artist. I think each artist that I ended up managing was the artist before that led me to them. I've always been interested in working and managing people that I actually am a fan of. So everybody that I represent, I love what they do. I love their work.
Yeah.
And so it starts with that. And then I do my best to go after them and bring them onto the roster.
Yeah.
Because I don't look at it like other people. I think management is a very... true management is non-existent anymore. I feel like it's a desk jockey job. And most people have lost what I look at as the craft of it, which is being very hands-on and collaborative and being like the actual managing partner of the business of music and entertainment.
Yeah, I was gonna say that because I feel like when I think of you and Joe, I don't view it even you as managing it. I feel like you have a partnership.
Yeah, I don't manage Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how our relationship started, was management.
Yeah.
But that's not what I do, and I don't do that with anybody I work with. Anybody that I call a client of mine or a partner of mine, there's a reason I call it that. Our work relationship's very much a partnership.
Yeah. And I feel like to me with this world, because artists also have so much access to even just get their voices out and do things. Like it seemed like it would be such a challenge to manage somebody in a sense because you want to have your input, but there's so many ways they can share or do things that you may not agree with. And you have to manage that in real time and deal with that. There is a
lot of conflict in managing an artist and collaborating with an artist and being a partner with somebody. And I think that's in any partnership. I don't think it has anything to do with entertainment or music. I do have my own ideologies. I have my own creative thoughts and processes that I think would work best for everyone I work with. And sometimes we don't agree. And if we don't agree, we have to at least vocalize like, hey, here's how I would do this. And then my partner will say, here's how I want to do this. And I think the beauty of that conversation in general and that relationship that we have is that we don't just yes or no each other to death. That's what makes for something special to happen is a piece of my idea could be great and a piece of his idea or her idea could be great. And we find a way to marry them and create a path. And hopefully things work.
How do you view the state of hip-hop podcasting today?
I'll get killed for answering that question anyways. Ian Schwartzman, how do you view the state of hip-hop podcasting? I mean, it's washed up. It's done. I think the bubble has burst. I think there was very much like a gold rush moment for hip-hop podcasting, maybe even podcasting as a whole.
Yep.
I happened to be right in the middle of it, and I got to see some crazy things happen that let me know this isn't for the craft. People are doing this chasing down checks. And
money grab.
All money grabs. You know, they look at it like, here's a way I can get on, get famous, get a bag. And when it doesn't work out after a couple of weeks, you know, you see 90% of the contenders quit.
Yeah.
So after that gold rush kind of ended, which I look at as like the 2020 moment, 2021, you saw all the fakers go back to doing whatever it is they had to do to bring in money and get away from podcasting. I think what we see now is the cream of the crop. The people who decided, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to hone in on my craft. I'm going to make this into a career. And even if it doesn't work right now, I'm going to keep sharpening the sword. I think the industry itself has been whittled down to the people who I think we have a chance at seeing last for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But the industry of hip-hop podcasting, in the traditional sense, I think is over. I think we're going to see even bigger exodus in a second, because when the money disappears, people usually disappear too.
Well, you guys got the first big deal with Spotify, right? So
Yes.
once that famously didn't end, you know, parted ways, right? Let's say.
With Spotify, you mean?
Yeah, at that time.
Yeah, that did not work at the end. After our first deal.
Do you look back on that did you view it as a mistake, or do you?
Absolutely not. It was the best thing we ever did partnering with Spotify.
Yeah.
The biggest move we made. I mean, and I really have nothing bad to say about Spotify, because the partnership with Spotify in 2018 was so instrumental to not only our future success that we've been having now, but it helped position so many other shows and creators to go on to be successful in the content space.
Yeah.
Podcasting was looked at like a very black market type of broadcast in 2000.
Not on the same level as one of the other.
Right. It's like, why are you doing podcasting? Most people would say, because you can't get a deal doing broadcast.
Mm-hmm. You can't get a radio gig.
You can't get a content gig. You can't get a traditional terrestrial radio gig. And, you know, it was looked at as second tier. And I think when we did our partnership with Spotify, it screamed a couple things. It screamed that the biggest streaming DSPs in the world are getting behind this thing called podcasting. And it screamed that they chose the Joe Budden podcast. Mm-hmm. And so hip hop media had a real spot in this new industry that was going to be erected. And so that message rang, I think, globally. And not only that, I made sure when I negotiated the deal that there were significant marketing commitments to make sure that we looked like it was a Hollywood movie rollout, not a hip-hop broadcast that was being recorded in Parks' basement. I wanted it to feel larger than life, because I knew that would resonate with the fans that we had and people that had no clue why they should be a fan.
How challenging was it when the deal ends to then, how does it get to the point of kind of what I feel like your strength now is like you're so direct to your consumers,
right?
Through Patreon, through other outlets, like,
right.
What was that transition like? And you kind of have the vision that it's not going to be about getting another big deal someplace, but we need to go direct to our big fan base and grow with them?
Yeah, I think, I would say halfway through our Spotify deal, we just had this inclination that things needed to change when this situation was up. We were seeing that the fans followed us off of all the platforms we distributed the podcast just to listen on Spotify. And so that behavior in itself was a huge signal to us. Wait a second. These people weren't signed up for Spotify to begin with. We moved the podcast here exclusively for the audio only. And they're not only signing up, but they're committed to listening twice a week. So what's stopping us after this Spotify deal from putting our content, our audio somewhere else, and maybe our video too, and having a direct relationship with these fans, getting to learn them more. Because on Spotify, you may see how many streams you have. You may see a few other pieces of information that they provide on a dashboard. But what I can assure you, you don't see is who are these people that are signed up listening to your podcast twice a week.
Yeah.
You don't know where they're from. You don't know if they're male or female. You don't know how often they're tuning in or for how long. You get pieces of information, and Spotify started being a little bit better about sharing that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was like this drive to want to know more about these people that were so dedicated to the show. Mm. There was more value in that to me and Joe than there was in a deal. Mm. And so I knew that whatever our next move was, it had to be a more intimate relationship with the fans so that we could steer the ship. Because I feel like once you do deals with other companies, especially exclusives like we did, you lose control. And if you really do know where the ship is supposed to go, if you're directionally the leader of your business, the last thing in the world you want is the people that you're partnered with telling you where to steer. Mm. You want to be the one pointing the direction and then going there.
Do you think the Spotify deal kind of gave you guys more outside exposure to the different audience, and then you were kind of able to then now take them back on your independent journey?
I think the Spotify partnership definitely helped elevate our brand. Do I think it opened us up to a bigger audience?
Reaching people that may not have been familiar with you?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I reached out to Spotify in 2016. I emailed them and I said, I know you guys don't focus or have any podcasts on the platform. This may even been 2015. I'm not sure of the exact date. But I won't say who I emailed.
When everybody was more listening on.
It was just music.
It was an Apple podcast to listen to.
Well, then the DSP, it was Apple Podcasts, and then the DSPs were just for music.
Yeah.
I reached out and I said, hey, I manage Joe Budden, and we have the Joe Budden podcast, and just off of the SoundCloud information I'm gathering, we have a rabid audience that's listening to the podcast once a week, but they're listening to the whole thing. Why can't we open up Joe's Spotify account to this long-form podcasting content? I just want to post it there. I got a nice long email back. Ian, we don't do podcasts. We don't even know how we would do this. We don't know how we would service it. Thanks for requesting, but no thank you. I said, okay, no problem. So do I think they opened us up, to get back to your question, do I think they opened us up to a new audience? No, because our podcast was everywhere. I purposely didn't put it on Spotify because what I started realizing when we were looking at the analytics and seeing how the fans were reacting to us being on, let's just call it Apple and SoundCloud for now. I thought to myself, we can't put it anywhere else until we start doing business with these platforms. Eventually, they're going to need us. Because the audience, these premier DSPs need to give a good experience to their listeners. Eventually, they're going to have to reach out to us like a Netflix if they want to have our IP on the platform. So when they called, they're like, hey, I don't want to give up too much, but they just wanted us to put our podcast on Spotify. And obviously, we needed to do some business first before that happened. And we did it, and it was great.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't think they opened us up to an audience. I think they opened our eyes up to how dedicated and committed our fans were to follow the show wherever we went.
Yeah.
And so that was part one. Part two, they put real money behind our brand of the Joe Budden podcast and did real outdoor marketing, did real digital marketing, and that definitely had an effect. So in that way, yes, they opened up people's eyes to the Joe Budden podcast. But if anything, I think we brought people that weren't signed up for Spotify to Spotify and created a concentration, a trusted space for you to come, a destination for you to come digest your podcasting.
Yeah.
And I think that is bigger than anything else because after that, we went from the first deal to one of 1,000 podcasts that they had signed on board to house their broadcast on Spotify. But I'm grateful nonetheless. It was great. I learned a lot.
In that first era, obviously, was the Joe Budden, Rory and Mal era in a lot of sense, right?
Yes.
How do you weather that storm? How do you? To me, it's like people. The Rockefeller breakup. The Rockefeller breakup is infamous.
Yeah.
I feel like in our space, the biggest podcast breakup is this narrative: Budden, Rory, Mal.
When you say how do we weather it,
how do you get through it? Like, because you build something that was successful with this team, with these 3 people.
Yeah.
Kind of coming to own, but then now all of a sudden they're gone. Like, what's that transition?
To be honest, that sucked.
Do you have any regrets about any of the situation?
Well, I mean, look, if you look back, you go, damn it, I wish it would have worked out. I wish everything could have been reconciled and everyone was getting along. But that wasn't what was happening. Yeah. And everyone wants it to be a different ending. But as you move forward, I look at it and I look back and think to myself, man, we all did exactly what we were supposed to do in those moments. We had an amazing run. And it just didn't work out. I mean, and it sucked during the whole events. Mm-hmm. The ridicule, the rumors, the bad mouthing, the not getting along, the not speaking. I mean, it was really like a family there. And it wasn't always like your family. You know, you guys all care and love each other. But it doesn't mean you're always getting along.
Yeah.
And so people don't understand that part of it, is that there was a lot of tension in places that I think didn't need to be. And, you know, you weather it by going through it and experiencing it.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of uncomfortable moments. It felt off. It felt fucked up. But people made decisions and people landed where they landed. And you saw what we had to do, but we had to keep going. Yeah. The show is the show. Yeah. The show had to move on. Do I wish it would have worked out? I think things worked out exactly how they were supposed to. Yeah. I really do. I think they moved on to do their own show, which is maybe what they wanted to do. And we moved on to make a new version of the podcast that was not to mimic anything that happened in the past. That was an amazing era that no one can erase. Yeah. That's history. Yeah. But we both changed exactly what we needed to and kept on going.
When did they connect that you guys wanted to expand and make it kind of what it is now, where it's a lot of mics, 6 mics.
A lot of personalities.
A lot of people can talk. A lot of people can talk over each other. Like this whole ensemble cast kind of thing is with Joe as a leader. Like, how did that develop to become what the podcast is now?
I think Joe's mind is like always running with, how can I make things better? This is what I love about Joe, by the way. He's not someone who gets complacent. And so once we got settled and had new cast members, when Ice and Ish took those seats, that was a new iteration of the show. And so a lot of people may have thought, okay, that's it. But Joe and I off camera would constantly be talking like, okay, is there anything missing? Is there anything we need to add? Is there more flair that we need? Is there more funny we need? And Joe's brain is constantly working. And I think the way that developed is Joe would run into people, or Joe would have someone on a pod, or he'd be a guest on a pod. And if he has interest in what you bring to the table, he naturally will invite you into his spaces more, onto his show. Just to, it's almost like this is how he tests you. Mm-hmm. And he just kept adding to the pie because there were things to add. Not because we felt like things were missing, but Joe knows how to add value in the spaces he's in. And then we would talk through it, and we'd do like these test cycles with people, like, hey, come on for a few episodes. And then Joe would be a little more committed to it. And then we'd be more committed to giving them a situation that made them more comfortable to make it a part of their routine. Yeah. But it's all Joe's brain constantly going and thinking, how can I make this better? How can I make this more interesting? Yeah. It's his producer brain.
Is it like enjoying? It seems like, you know, Flip is an interesting character. Like, is it somewhat like organized confusion, organized chaos that like you're managing at a time?
Yeah, there's a lot of organized chaos. Yeah. But with really great talent, there's chaos. Some of the best people that I work with, the presentation looks great, but behind the presentation, it takes a lot of chaos to get that product.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely times where it's like, holy shit, this is a circus. But you're not going to see that.
Yeah.
And it's also not negative. It's just the way that the creative and the business meet and then have to deal with each other. It is collide. It's like two trains running into each other. Except instead of them smashing and going backwards, we just integrate.
And then it plays to the public no matter what, right? It's almost like
it always works,
right? So if this guy's disgruntled or there's a beef about the money, whatever the speculation is,
right?
You play that out to the public at the same time. Share with your audience.
Well, in our environment, let's not say reality TV, but in our environment, the reality or the perceived reality is what's interesting. The fans feel like they know the cast and the ensemble behind the cast. So as much as the show is willing to share, is as involved and engulfed as the fans want to become.
Yeah.
So someone in my position may say none of it's bad. None of it's bad because we're not putting on an image. This is for real.
Yeah.
Now, is everything?
You re-signing Queen's Flip. Ask that for him, man. Ask that for him. He's from Queens, man.
You love Flip?
I've learned. I didn't necessarily. I wasn't a fan of Flip's content.
Right.
No disrespect.
Yeah.
But I like him now. Like I've got to know him through Joe Budden's show, actually, more so. Like, that's the crazy part. Like, I had heard of him. I saw some of his shit go viral. Right. But I become more of a fan of him and more connected to who he is and how he ticks from being on the pod.
I love Flip.
Yeah.
I think he's a fucking genius.
Yeah.
I think the Joe Budden podcast fans have seen less than 1% of what Flip brings to the table. And I think there's so much more that the world will discover about him.
Yeah.
He is incredible. And even some of the content, like you said, I knew him from some of the car skits and that whole era of his content creation before Joe. Yeah. But I didn't know much of him. I just knew the virality of some of the content he created. As I got to know him more and more and more, like his wisdom is deep. He's hilarious. He's off the cuff. His passion, and he's a star. I mean this. Like that part is not something that I would just throw around anywhere. It's like he's a star. He knows what to do. When that camera turns on, he turns on.
Yeah.
And good, bad, or indifferent. No shame. He'll crash out. Just it's not for the camera. It's I just feel like he's living like the Truman Show at times. Yeah. And there's just so much more to come from Flip. And I hope that he continues on a positive path. I do everything I can to help him and keep him on the tracks. And also, empower some of his ideas that have legs.
Yeah. Improv. They want the improv back.
Improper improv. It's coming back. It's coming back. I just got to make sure it's safe and not a liability. And we do things the right way, and then that's it, man. But I love improv too. Flip's great, and I would love to work with Flip as long as Flip wants to work with us.
How important is Melissa Ford's role on the show and having this female presence, and how do you manage that?
Okay, Melissa Ford is incredible. Having a female presence on the pod could be one of Joe's single best decisions to add to the podcast dynamic in my whole 8 years working with him. It was a male-driven show prior to her arrival.
Yeah.
And she adds balance, rationale, and just a calming perspective that does not exist without her there. And Joe needs it sometimes.
Yeah.
And Ish and Ice and Parks and Flip and Imani, they all need it at times.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's, you know, when you're in the room with a bunch of guys and you just like, you'll be with your buddies and you're just like spewing shit. You don't even believe what you're saying. You're just spewing shit. And, you know, you're just being a dude. But sometimes, especially when you have a platform like this, that stuff's not cool. And you're an adult.
Yeah.
And you need a little different awareness. Like, you and I are married. Without my wife, I'm a lunatic. Yeah. And I also lack balance and rationale. And, you know, I know what it does for me at home. So I also am aware and very conscious of what it does to the podcast to have Melissa on there. And Melissa and I have a very good relationship. Professionally, we have the ability to talk off camera in a very healthy way. And I think she's really a special person, and she adds a lot of value, and she talks to women. Joe and the guys used to just talk to guys about women. Now there's a direct line to a female audience because of Mel. And she's not a green thumb. Like, she's her. And she's not afraid. I think some of her hesitations that she's working through are the way she feels so responsible for all women when she speaks.
It's a big seat.
It's a huge seat that she sits in. But I try to tell her, like, you are not responsible for all women. Yes, it's great that you even are conscious enough to have that thought before you speak, but you individually are not responsible for all women. I encourage you to voice how you really feel in every scenario, but there is weight with it. Yeah. It's easy to speak when you're not in the seat, but when you're in the seat and your words start traveling and it gets back to you in different ways, there is an undeniable pressure that all of the podcast hosts have, no matter what you tell them, or no matter how much you tell them. Who gives a fuck what the fans think? No, it's pressure. There's people thinking things, forming opinions about you, and then vocalizing those opinions about you, both publicly when they run into you. So there is pressure, but having her on has been amazing. I like M4.
M4. I told you I enjoyed your interview with Nessa, and she kind of made you pick a favorite client, which was Premier, even though you didn't want to admit it. And you guys said something about, but he also frustrates you the most, and I don't think you explained why. Like, why does Primo frustrate you?
Oh my God. Preem is my favorite client because he is so genuine and so down to earth and untainted by 35 years of the industry, which seems impossible. He's the most frustrating because he's so set in his ways. And, you know, there's a huge gap between Preem and I. 25 years, you know, of age difference. And the way I look at approaching the business and strategy around his brand, the music we put together, how we release things, how we attack certain pieces of our infrastructure, and the way he's okay dealing with it is frustrating to me. We do argue a lot, and I don't think it's odd. It's just,
you want him to do more, or you pushing him to do?
It's not about doing more. It's about doing things in a way that respects your own time. When you let people step too far, when you give them too much rope, they will fucking strangle you with it. In this business, no one respects anyone's time. No one respects anyone's kindness. And that doesn't mean I don't want Preem to be the kind soul he is. I want him to be exactly who he is, but set boundaries for yourself. It's one of the hardest things to do in entertainment and music is to set boundaries. All of us are constantly accessible. We're constantly...
People are asking for stuff.
Well, that's the other time. Preem could be a yes. Preem could be a yes man. Because he doesn't want to let people down. He wants to say yes to everything. because I feel like he's fulfilled in what he's done already.
Mm-hmm.
So when people come to him and ask,
Yeah.
I feel like I want to speak, I want to scream for him sometimes.
Protect him.
Protect him, yeah. And I mean, people would look at that and hear me say that and say, "Oh, that's gatekeeping. That's you actually fulfilling the shoes of being that evil position on the team, but
controlling."
Exactly, controlling. And I'm like, no, it's simple. I don't want to see Premier get used and abused. He's too nice.
Yeah.
And he's too stuck in his ways. He very much benefits from having people around him that are younger than him, that care about him first and foremost, and don't want to see him get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So I get frustrated with Preem just being too quick to say yes to things.
Yeah.
And Nessa did ask me that, and it's not like the other people I work with I don't love. It's just like...
You said something about you had like a quality in each person that you have to connect with.
When I sat with Nessa, I was clear with her. I said, in order for me to do what I do professionally, I absolutely need to have a deep connection with each of them. My wife is my first wife, but I also feel like I have marriages with every artist I work with. We have this deep connection where there's qualities about each of them that I'm in love with.
Yeah.
I really am. Like I'm.
Give me some examples. What?
Okay.
Then I also meant to ask you, who's more abrasive, you or Joe?
You want qualities or who's more abrasive first?
Is abrasiveness the quality that you love about Joe? I would say Joe's dope.
No, that's not my quality. My quality.
I respect Joe's work ethic.
He's a great.
People don't give him enough credit for that. To me, like he's a workhorse. Like his work ethic. Like he's obviously don't see like quote unquote how you would view somebody professional per se, but he actually is a professional in that sense. He puts his mind to things, and the hours he'll put in, he'll outwork everybody.
Elliott, my favorite quality about Joe Budden is his vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
He is the least afraid entertainer I know to be truly himself. No matter what you have to say about him, and he will get out in front of it before you say it about him. I love that about him. I'm not. I always bring up Howard Stern.
Rap. He couldn't make it. All that stuff. That bullshit. They put on his jacket.
That he quit rap?
Yeah, that he
didn't.
Yeah,
he didn't quit rap.
Yeah.
What he did was a strategy to get you to now focus on another craft he wanted to hone in on, which is broadcast.
Yeah.
And if you had any sense of doing your due diligence, you'd look back and go, well, the same time he produced his first hit record, he was also the morning show host on WBLS. So those passions...
No, Hot 97, right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, Hot 97.
Okay.
So he didn't quit anything. He started these two things relatively at the same time.
Yeah.
And now in phase 2 of his professional career, he wanted to focus on broadcast and entertainment and not music. But my favorite quality of Joe is vulnerability.
Yeah.
And he is the hardest working client I have. The hardest working client I have. But the quality is vulnerability. His work ethic is unmatched, even on the executive side. Like I know a ton of managers, entertainment executives, agents. I don't care. If Joe wants something, he's going to work his ass off to not only get there, but be the best at it. Preem's best quality to me is compassion. He is just the most solid human being I've ever been around, and it's not because I work with him. You know Preem well too. He is just a good soul.
Yeah.
He really is. Like you could forget you're around DJ Premier when you're around him because he makes you feel so comfortable.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you're with some...
He remembers everything.
Remember He once told me that, he said, you know what Jay-Z calls me? I said, what? He said, memory man, you got an elephant memory.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Funny. Yeah.
Papoose, loyal. Michael Rappaport, fearless. Remy Ma, unapologetic. Brady Watt, resilient. That's it. That's it.
Do you have goals as we get out of here? Do you have goals in your mind of things you want to achieve? Like
yes.
Of
course I have goals, man.
But do you keep? No, what I'm saying.
Do you have goals?
No, I'm saying.
Do you have goals, Elliott?
I have big goals.
Come on, man.
No, but do you keep it to your chest, or do you feel like you're a mood board kind of person, or like how much pressure do you put on yourself to achieve these things in a certain time frame?
I have so many goals. Some of which I share publicly, some of which I don't until they're ready, because I don't want to talk about something and then for some reason or another it just doesn't materialize.
Yeah.
I do have big goals for myself. Management and partnership with the artists I have is the first phase of it. But as time continues to go on, I want to be in an even better position to help educate and inform the next generation of businessmen and artists in the industry. When I first got in, and since I've been in, I noticed that there is an enormous gap of literacy for the business and how to operate. And it's caused so many artists so much heartache. It's caused so many teams, so many issues that could have been avoided. But we perpetuate bad business in this industry. We act like it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's not. So, and I think it's an easy fix, but you have to put time, energy, and resources into it.
Yeah.
And so, as things develop, I will continue to make sure that I can help other artists. I'd like to scale my businesses and not just for financial gain, but I get fulfillment out of helping them elevate. That's what I love about it. That's the selfish part of it for me is when some of my ideas work and I'm able to collaborate with artists to help them build a bigger and better business. That's part of my goals in the future. And I want to put people on that deserve positions on the management side, on the agent side, on the creative side, on the production side. I want to scale all of those operations that I've helped build with the artists that I have now. And if I could do that, I'm happy.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Elliott. What are your goals, man? Give me one of your goals.
Schwartzman is my manager. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to make that happen.
You're trying to make me your manager. I don't think you could deal with me. I really don't.
I like it.
I think I'd be too abrasive for you. I feel like it's the preem thing. First of all, I love the run you're on. Before we wrap this up,
Thank you.
Recently you've been on a run, and you and I have had conversations in private.
Yeah.
And I tell you exactly how I think it should be.
He does. I say you're the nicest abrasive guy on the planet. You give it out. You give the tough news out in a very
nice way,
abrasively nice way.
Do you get offended when I say that?
One of them might be like, "Fuck, what the fuck? Talk to like this." It's like, okay,
right.
I'll receive it. As I always say, my therapist says, I receive that.
Right, receive it. But do you accept any of it to be true?
I accept some of it.
Okay, I'll take some. I'll take some.
That is hard for me.
I know that.
Yeah.
But just in talking to you, I know that people helping suggest certain practices could be a tough path for you who's been in it so long.
Yeah.
But I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And you deserve the flowers, the positioning you have. I also didn't agree you should have been number 5 on the complex list.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think you could also be number 1 if you put your mind to what you're doing and start really focusing on what the brand should look like. So take that for what it's worth. I think you could have any spot you want, but it's about what you're willing to do to get there.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
My guy.
I appreciate you, buddy.